What? Hello, welcome to the show. After a bit of a false start, we got there in the end. It did play. I hope you all enjoyed my girly scream, but welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name is Rory, and I am joined by... Anybody?
Adam, and when he wants to be there.
Hello.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
My screen froze, and I heard like voices. I was like, the screen's froze. I was like, I didn't know what's going on.
I apologize for the low energy start, listeners, viewers, but we are here. We are all here and present.
We are here
and
and present.
Despite the Premier League not being here and present, we have decided to continue and do what the rest of the country has really done and just turned our focus to Europe and just looked elsewhere for our football fix. So this week we are going to be looking at, of course, our favourite Serie A, and then we're going to be looking at La Liga, Bundesliga and Liga and giving you a bit of a recap of the situation there, the games that have taken place, and maybe some players to look out for. So something a bit different this week, but we are still here. Guys, how are we doing?
Yeah, all good. A bit lost without the Premier League and Football League, but yeah, we've got European football to treat us, right?
And there was some bangers, there's some good title races, some surprise packages hanging about. But yeah, how did we feel about, I think it probably deserves some discussion. How do we feel about the Premier League being postponed? I feel like it was a bit unnecessary once I saw the cricket going on. What do we think?
Yeah, go on, Andy.
Yeah, I thought it was pointless, to be honest. It was, cricket's carried on as normal, rugby's carried on as normal, and it's not even something you can blame the government for. It's because, the guidelines was for the government, okay to play. And I think most people would have been happy where, black armbands, national anthem, 1 minute silence, that kind of thing. Now, there were apparently some other factors behind it. I think there were some fears from those at the board that there might be a bit of show of dissent, and obviously there's certain parts of the country, especially up north and in Liverpool, where the feeling towards the Royals isn't particularly great, it's fair to say. And I think it looks like the Premier League executives are more worried about their the image and what images would be projected, because let's be honest, football is our national sport. The Premier League is the most watched league in the world, so anything controversial that might have happened probably would have been broadcast all over the place, and maybe they were fearful of that, but I don't think they're given much consideration to where they're going to play those fixtures. That's what I want to know. Yeah, because you've got a World Cup coming up, which you've already had to squeeze in like 17 odd league games. You've got obviously an international break for Nations League qualifiers or something, or Nations League matches.
Yeah.
Which why?
Just get rid of them straight away. Just get rid of them. For now,
and it feels like we're back where we are in COVID again, except this is completely of our own doing. I think if they're going to cancel a weekend's fixtures, and they might as well have just done it for this weekend. But at the moment, some are going ahead, some aren't. That situation may change or may not change. It's a little bit strange, and I think I think for Manchester United, like their next game now is going to be Manchester City in October.
Our next game is Tottenham in October. So we've just got loads of time to prepare for our biggest game of the season. There's no way that can go wrong. There's no way it can go wrong.
So, it feels a little bit bad because, like, obviously the Queen passing away, for many people it is a sad thing, and it's not something obviously going to happen very often, but I felt that the Premier League could have gone ahead, and I don't think they've not really considered the fans in this who've had to travel, book hotels. They've not considered like the players most of all, because especially for teams that have got European fixtures.
Well, in October, Arsenal are already due to have 9 games in October. Like, we can't fit any more in anywhere. Like, and I think, like you said, a lot of teams are at that situation now where it's like, okay, well, then what happens? Is it post-World Cup, which then throws all sorts of problems in itself? Like, it has been a bit of a mess. Obviously, it's not like the main point, but from a football podcast, what we're focusing on is the football, and it's really fucking annoying that it's happened. And I did feel really bad for, like, I'm sure it was all over Twitter as well, for multiple teams, fans that had, like, flown from other countries. There was a guy who'd flown from Japan to watch the Arsenal game and then was like, now what do I do? And it's like, obviously, you can't just change national plans for one person, but it obviously wasn't one thing. This is football tourism is a big thing in the UK. Like, I feel like it wasn't really thought about, but here we are. The Conference League, the Europa League, some of it's being played, some of it isn't. Arsenal's game's been cancelled. I think Chelsea still get to play in theirs. It is very much a case by case basis. What did you make of it, Adam?
Yeah, it's a really strange one, to be fair. I don't know really what the best thing to do, but it just seems really random that they haven't got the support there to, like, obviously get us through these kind of games, and it's going to cause unnecessary harm to those players as well. We're thinking selfishly about like supporters, but the players have got to somehow have that stamina to last these games, and it could be in a tight schedule again where they're kind of playing 3 or 4 games in a week potentially. Now we're looking at, so it's just crazy. I can't kind of echo what Andy's just said there. It just feels like it's missed opportunity. And something that was actually interesting, speaking to a mate yesterday, was, can you imagine the scenes of most of the stadiums singing God Save the King? Can you imagine what that could have actually replicated and what that could have seen or shown to the rest of the world? So it's a shame. It's a missed opportunity in my eyes, but hey ho.
I feel like with anything like this, there's always going to be idiots that ruin anything, no matter what it is. There's always going to be idiots. And I think obviously they've just overreacted a little bit, as maybe the country has in general overreacted a little bit and just been like that. We can't have any room for like anything here. But anyway, like I said, here we are. We're going to talk about football that did happen. But before we do that, I want to plug a podcast that definitely does not need any plugging. I'm pretty sure it's the #1 listened podcast in the country. But I've never listened to it because I thought the title made it sound like it was for wankers. Diary of a CEO. I was like, well, I don't know if that's up my street. But they have got Chris Kamara on, and I didn't realize what he was going through and how rough his childhood was. I feel like it was a really, really eye-opening and like heart-warming kind of listen in a way. Like I was just listening to it on the metro on the way home, and I was genuinely getting a bit teared up. Like, it really, really, listening to his voice now compared to the guy you remember from Soccer Saturday and stuff. It really was an incredible listen. Like, but you, Adam, you said you listened to it. What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's fascinating. You just, like, the moment you hear Chris Kamara on the pod, you just straight away automatically go, what the hell's happened? Like, because I saw the kind of promo clips leading up to it, and I am actually a listener of that podcast.
Sorry.
Sorry for saying it, but no, literally, that's the nice thing about Stephen Bartlett. He kind of lets the guest kind of almost tell the story. And it was just, you couldn't believe the circumstances that Kamara's kind of faced himself, like from his youth onwards. Like, he was telling about how his mum had to borrow food sometimes because his dad was just horrifically like an alcoholic, essentially betting as well as beating up his wife. And obviously they face racism. Then you hear about his later life, obviously being a footballer and having to face racism firsthand as well, and saying he was used to it. He had to just get on with it. And some of the players kind of realize, oh shit, this kind of happens, because they probably weren't exposed to it. And then you hear about obviously his health scares and stuff like that. It's like, like, it's just crazy, like what he's had to go through, and what you see on Sky Sports isn't the same Chris Kamara that is portrayed in this episode. So for anyone out there that is keen to kind of listen to it, go and listen to it, because it's fascinating insight. Just another plug from that particular podcast. He did one with Patrice Evra, who also shared some home truths about himself.
Damn.
Where, I won't go into detail, but unfortunately, he had a horrific upbringing himself.
Oh, I think I remember that now.
And I think that's all we need to say at this point. But definitely recommend it. Very fascinating podcast.
No, I do. I do need to wheel back a little bit and say I was actually really, really impressed with Steve Bartlett's interview technique, because he does just he just lets them speak, and he didn't even finish questions. He just leads and leaves the space for them to continue talking. I thought it was really, really, really interesting. But yeah, the strength of Chris Kamara's character, I never realized, and I was just impressed. But we can go now, and we can go to, I think we're going to head to Italy, and we're going to blow the dust off one of these old videos. You're welcome, guys. Here we go. And we are in Italy for the Serie A review. There we go. And the game, guys, one thing you learn from us is only listen to us 50% of the time. The game that we said you definitely should not watch was the game that you definitely should not have missed. And it is, of course, Juventus 2, Salernitana 2. I no matter what position a team is in against Juve, no matter how many goals they're ahead, Juve always find a way to come back at home. It blows my mind. Like in the first half, Salernitana were light years ahead of Juve. They were just completely off it. Juve looked a shadow of their former selves, even more so. And somehow they still get into it. Pod favourite, Piontek makes it 2-0 from the penalty spot. Gets the trademark out with the celebration. Candreva getting a goal. That guy. Forgot he was there. But then obviously the moment that everyone's talking about, and I want to hear what you made of it, Adam, and I'll get your thoughts, Andy, is the absolute chaos between the 3 red cards. Was it 3 red cards, a disallowed goal?
Four in total.
A shirt taken off. Yeah.
So obviously at that moment, Juve are chasing for a winner, and they get the corner literally as 90 plus 5 minutes. Because when I was screwing on our group saying, bloody hell, Juve got themselves back into it, and the 90 plus 5th minute, you just see Milik score, leaping like salmon head, and he just goes into the crowds. I mean, you got to hand it, euphoric, like the emotions were probably quite high. Like Juve fans thought they'd done it, scenes. And then suddenly, obviously, referee gives second yellow card to Milik, so he goes off, sent off. And then the referee's called to do VAR. And this is the weird thing, is obviously they're showing it from one angle, this VAR decision, where Bonucci's got his foot out, and it looks like he could direct the ball. So therefore, on that basis that it could be seen as being offside, it's given us offside. And then what transpires is there's another angle, if you look at the other side of the pitch, where Candreva is literally playing him on, which is so bizarre that VAR didn't see all the angles, which I don't understand. How is that camera angle available, yet they haven't utilized it? And it's just so strange. Anyway, as you can imagine, loads of players get really frustrated as soon as a referee kind of gives it against Juventus, and therefore the likes of Fazio, Cuadrado are sent off, and so is Allegri's already walking off. He knows he's been sent off. He's clearly said something, but he's sent off. But boy, was that a hell of a match. I was so gutted for Salernitana, but at the same time, it's typical Allegri. There's never a boring moment, is there, with Juventus? It's just... But
despite 90 minutes
the carnage on Twitter was hilarious to watch, because Juve fans are just going to hold this particular scene. And the interesting thing, I think, what boils over is the fact that this kind of covers what was a really poor performance by Juventus. So this one moment kind of maybe gives Allegri some time, because they'll just go, look, that should have been a goal. That should have been the winner, that we should have got 3 points. So, but for the neutral, it was an amazing match. Absolutely. If you didn't know anything about either side, it was just pure emotion, pure action. You enjoyed every
Carnage.
second of it. Yes,
It was
basically.
absolute carnage. It was peak Serie A. And it was funny because last week on this very show, we were talking about how maybe Serie A has less VAR fuck-ups than the Premier League. And I said yes, and Adam was like, no, I think they do. They do.
Yeah.
And this weekend, there was a fair few of them. This was definitely one of them. The thing about the angle blew my mind because the picture... Yeah, it's Candreva who's just playing him on from the corner, right? And he's just stood there.
I don't know why he's
didn't see
there
that
even. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's he doing? Trying to block like the view? I don't know. But clearly I think it was maybe just like certain corners were quite low in terms of the way it was being hit. So maybe he thought he'd get a deflection or something like that. But yeah, it's so bizarre to see him in that position.
But as Steve Cole said, it is nice to see Juve getting shafted by the officials for once, rather than it all going their way. Yeah, Andy, what did you make of it? Did Bonucci touch the ball? That's the key thing. I'm not sure he touched the ball.
I don't think he did, but I mean, there's a couple of things. Like, obviously, if you make a move towards the ball, you interfere with play, generally speaking. But then, if it's a bloke playing you on side, several meters away, it doesn't matter. It's just, it's utterly baffling. And I think, it's Juve. Of course, I think we all would love to see them screw up, get them screwed over. But if it was your own team, you'd be absolutely
God, you'd be
and also, I think this whole yellow card over taking your shirt off, I think it's just my pet hate in football that is even a thing. Like there's literally, I think it's something to do with sponsors or something like that. I'm sorry, but you see the sponsors for 99.9% of the football match. I'm sure you could deal with it for 0.7 seconds that you can't. It's just, I just find it utterly bizarre. Like, when you're in the moment where you score a 90, or you think you've scored a
97th minute winner.
97th minute winner. Then I think you're gonna be absolutely buzzy. You're gonna want to take your shirt off. It's just like, the best way. I mean, I feel sorry for Milik. I mean, it must be like, getting a text from Margot Robbie asking you out on a date, and then realise she's giving you realise it's the wrong number. And like you just go from there to there in no time at all. So.
And your shirt's off in both circumstances pretty quickly, I think.
So, I do feel sorry for Milik, but I'm sure
there is a point to discuss about should that red card should be rescinded now though, because the goal didn't count.
Theory,
Surely that red card.
But the rules apparently a red card could only be rescinded if it's a straight red, and obviously he'd already picked up a yellow in the game, and that's what it's the same. And that rule's been there for years. I mean, I remember back in 2011 when Man United got to the Champions League final and Darren Fletcher picked up like a really pointless yellow, but there's no recourse for like yellows or yellows turning into reds. It's like it's just a very strange. Like I can't see why VAR can go, well, if he didn't score.
Surely none of that counts, right? None of that counts. Yeah. Well, Juventus could actually miss him because Milik has been very, very good for Juventus since he's turned up at the club. Arguably one of their most exciting and deadly players so far. That should have been a winner. As we said, that should have been another goal, but it wasn't to be. Salernitana, on the other hand, looked like a team that could actually... They've improved from last year. They've definitely improved from last year. I expected them to go drop like a rock this year. They've had their fairy tale. They've had the romance. Now they can go back down. They're looking like a very solid team that can cause problems. They've made some sensible transfers. They've got good owners. They could be here to stay. I hope so. I really do hope so. Elsewhere in Italy, we're going to leave that one there for now. Which game should we go to next? I'm thinking, should we talk about Napoli or should we talk about Udinese? Let's talk about Udinese.
Udinese, because that's amazing to see them continue the run that they're doing right now. And it was Beto. Beto came on, scored 2 goals. I mean, to be fair, Sassuolo were down to 10 men by that point, by the time he scored the winners. But yeah, again, Udinese seems to be just ongoing. Fratesi scored a fantastic goal, though, it has to be said, for Sassuolo. Did look like Sassuolo might have the makings. And we did debate this on the pod. We were like, this could be an interesting match because we didn't know which way it'd go. We knew Sassuolo's defense was useless, and it was proved by that, basically. But yeah, ultimately, Udinese just continue this train of form. So yeah, fair play to them. What was your thoughts on that match?
I really enjoyed it. I love Beto as a player. We've talked about him before, and I think he's going to be the next striker that gets a big move to like higher up in Serie A. I think both the goals showed how versatile a player he is. The first one was in the 6-yard box, towering header, just bulleted it past the keeper. And the second goal was a kind of running through on goal, composed, wrong-footed the goalkeeper, like gave him the eyes, and then just put it the other side of him. Like really, really composed finish. And I thought that is both sides of his game. I love him as a striker. I think Udinese could have a really exciting season here. We've talked about their manager, that he's kind of come from nowhere, but they are not stopping. And I think, like you said, Sassuolo, they love to concede a goal, Sassuolo, but going there away is still a difficult day. And now Udinese find themselves right up there. They are fourth on 13 points, only 1 point off the top. They've won all their last 4. Like the only game they've lost was the first game of the season against AC Milan. Like they are on a hell of a run. I think this is the team that like could be the Verona of this year, but maybe push it a little bit further, hopefully. And as we said before, with Deulofeu as well, they've always got a chance. Like guy is just, really, really exciting. And I hope actually that like Beto, one day we see him. Maybe not at Watford, but if it's in England, it's going to be at Watford, isn't it? But I would love to see him in the Premier League at some point, but maybe not Watford killing his career. So yeah, Udinese get another 3 points as they beat Sassuolo away. And elsewhere, we're going to talk about 2 1-0s, I think.
Okay.
Actually, let's go for Inter first, because I've got to issue an apology. We slag him off.
Handanovic?
Yeah, we slag him off when he costs them games. So I have to doff my cap and say, Samir, without you, Inter would have lost that game quite heavily. Inter, as it is, win 1-0. Beautiful goal from Brozovic and an even more beautiful pass from Barella. What did you make of Inter's performance? We'll talk about Handanovic afterwards. I thought Inter were terrible.
Yeah, Inter just continue this vein of form that they just need to shake off at the moment. To be fair, they just looks lackluster at times as well. And the fact that he came in the 89th minute to score this kind of tells its own story. So the one kind of bright star you could say is Lautaro still looks quite good, despite the fact that most of his teammates do not give a fuck at the moment. It's just like, it's terrible to watch this demise of this club, but there's clearly something going on. Denzel Dumfries doesn't want to defend anymore. He seems to just like want to be in a like last third, should I say. Skriniar is just not the defender that we know of. And like you say, Handanovic, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. He saved them on multiple occasions, and it wasn't like a star-studded squad in Torino, but I did kind of tip this could be a game where Torino could, get something out of this match. And it's just a shame, I suppose, from their point of view, that they conceded so late and in that manner, because it was literally like he stuck out a leg and it kind of looped onto the other side and it went in. So the fact that Brozovic, of all players, is not the kind of goal-scoring player that you want. You kind of expect maybe Barella or Çalhanoğlu or something like that, but not Brozovic. And he's done that already twice in last 3 games now. So yeah,
it feels like he's carrying that team on his back. Really, it feels like he's the. And it's weird because they brought in the player Aslani to try and give him a day off, right? And they've not been able to because he's so key to that team. And he's the only one that seems to be running in midfield. And now he's having to attack as well. And you're like, Inter just look all sorts of lost. But Torino, incredibly unlucky. Yes. But Handanovic, Andy, did you see any of the saves? They were absolutely fantastic.
What?
He actually jumped.
I didn't have Handanovic giving his best Neuer impression in my bingo card this weekend. So no, unfortunately, I missed out on that. I'll have to Google it because I'm not sure I believe you guys. Because last time I was catching up on the it was the Milan derby, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
Well, I think he
have a stronger hand, do
Yeah.
something, put yourself in the right position. Yes, he looked ropey as fuck in the Milan derby,
Mhm.
but yeah, I guess better late than never.
Well, exactly. And I think maybe he's been scared by Onana starting in the Champions League. He's like, oh crap, I better
Yeah.
actually start moving.
Surely Onana's a better keeper though.
Yeah,
I think
he
so.
is.
Yeah.
He is. He is. He also he completely changed Inter's game with his passing and stuff. He was like, it won't be long before he's there. It's just that Handanovic is he's been there,
holding
club
on,
legend,
basically.
isn't he? But
Yeah.
we have to say, well done, Samir. Great performance,
Well
man
done.
of the match performance. Got the 3 points.
We'll be back to slagging you off next week.
Yeah, It'll be here quicker than you think. The other 1-0 that I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to throw to you, Adam, again, is Napoli 1, Spezia 0. How the hell was this only 1-0?
You say that, but Spezia also had their chances. I did say this would be one of those curveballs, but then also you got to look at it as Spalletti's clearly done the right thing because he was rotating the squad ready for Rangers, obviously, to play in the Champions League this week. And yeah, I mean, you look at the performances, he had to bring on the likes of Zielinski on in the second half because he was clearly feeling it was going to be a bit doubtful at least getting this goal. Kvara again, incredible. I mean, his twists and turns was just superlatives fail me now. He is just insane. And I was going to put this to Andy and say, if you compared him to the likes of Jack Grealish and the likes of Phil Foden, he's still light years ahead of those players at the moment on this form. It's just incredible. But yeah, just the fact that Raspadori scored was great as well. I think I'm really excited about him. Obviously, it's taken a little while before he got his goal, which is a surprise. But again, he hasn't had much opportunity so far. So great to see him off the mark. Spezia, unlucky for them, ultimately, I felt. They had one cleared off the line, which kind of shows you how close
Mario
it was.
Rui doing his best. Christ alive.
Yeah, incredible. But yeah, again, Napoli have secured another win. They're doing the same as last year, where they're kind of giving us that little glimmer where you think the title is going down south. Let's hope it continues.
We've got to get post World Cup. We've got to get post World Cup before we can even formulate a sentence about it.
I must caveat this though. Osimhen apparently might be out for 5 weeks, which might be the issue here.
And guess who just spent 150 million on him in the fantasy draft?
Yeah, apparently he's got some sort of thigh injury issue, which they reckon is going to take some issues. So, yeah, I'm glad. Probably Andy's glad that Man United haven't bought him because he'd just be on the injury board. But yeah, again, he's just one of those. If they had him fit for the majority of the season, I'm sure they'd be safe and would be saying potentially Scudetto winners here.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting to see Raspadori get the goal because I think he actually had a pretty terrible game and he had a few chances that he should have scored. And I was like, oh man, just get this guy off, put him out of his misery. It's not his day. And then there he is. He gets the goal, right? Hervin Lozano putting the ball across. Young prodigy, or one of their young, exciting players, Gaetano, doing a lovely little dummy so that Raspadori can knock it in. And they get all the 3 points at the Armando Maradona. Yeah, Kvara, unbelievable. It's just going to be I'm going to punctuate every sentence when it's Napoli with Kvara. Unbelievable.
Have we just lost that, Rory? I think we may have just lost Rory.
And then we
feel like we have.
Let's give it a pause. Let's see if it comes through. Okay, let's crack on, Andy. Let's move on. One of the other games that we had was Bologna beating Fiorentina 2-1. Marko Arnautovic scoring again for this particular match. We're going to put it to you. I know we said it offline, but Marko Arnautovic, would you have him at Man United?
Again, the answer is still no. One. He's still an aging striker we would have been overpaying for, and he's obviously, although on the pitch he's undoubtedly talented, to be fair to him, but off the pitch he's just not what you need at a club like Man United, especially with the attention that all of the players have. So yeah, I'm still glad he's staying exactly where he is for the time being.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say, Fiorentina are a team that I'm a bit skeptical about how they're going about their business. So far, they've only won one game this season, and it's been 2 defeats and 3 draws so far. They find themselves in 11th place, just ahead of Bologna, believe it or not, and Bologna beat them. So interesting. And with Bologna, they've recently replaced Sinisa Mihajlovic with Thiago Motta, who did some good stuff with Spezia. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with Bologna, but certainly looking ahead, that could be interesting. One of the games that we also covered last week, Andy, was the relegation battle, which is Monza versus Lecce. Monza, obviously the Berlusconi team that have been spending lots of money on players and barely getting a point. Obviously, they've got their first point of the season with this draw against Lecce. They drew 1-1. Appreciate you probably didn't see this game, but I have to say, good point for at least Monza in this respect. Lecce, though, find themselves slightly higher up the table, albeit with 2 more points. So that kind of says how tight it is at the bottom.
It's early doors, isn't it? I think this season is going to be a lot tighter anyway, because with the fixture congestion, is going to be harder to build a real consistent run.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think apart from that, I mean, I will go through the other results that did take place in Serie A, and then what we can do is maybe move to another league. So Atalanta drew 1-1 against Cremonese. Atalanta, who have been doing quite well, but they had to bring themselves back into this match. So yeah, fair dues to Atalanta for at least bringing themselves back into this match. And then Lazio is probably the team that Rory wanted to speak of a bit more, because they played Hellas Verona, and Hellas Verona, there's always like kind of a lot of goals in these matches, ended up with a 2-0 win for Lazio. So yeah, Lazio continue to be doing so well in this league. Andy, I know you're a big fan of Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. I'm amazed personally that he still hasn't found himself another club other than Lazio. And I think it was confirmed that he's done 300 appearances now for Lazio, which is incredible. Like, just the amount of time that he's been there,
isn't it?
Yeah. So,
but yeah, you honestly thought he'd get a move by now, because, like, I follow a few Lazio fans on Twitter, and they adore him. And yeah, he's one of those players, a bit like Wesley Sneijder was back in the day, where every single summer there is put in ex-Premier League club are interested, and then just nothing happens. So yeah.
No, it's fascinating. But Lazio doing quite well in the league, finding themselves at the moment 6th place on 11 points. So very good season so far by Lazio, and in particular Maurizio Sarri as well, who decides to flip the bird to the crowd, I think it was, in this particular match. But that's where I think we're going to call it quits with Serie A. So now we're going to go back into the blimp, Andy, and I believe we're going to be covering off now a league that you were covering off this week, and that was the German Bundesliga.
Indeed.
So let us get onto the blimp. So, Andy, I only saw a few results, but what was the pick of the games from the German Bundesliga this weekend?
So I picked up 4 results to sort of have a talk about. So obviously it's been a bit of a week of upheaval at RB Leipzig. So, if you throw back to the Champions League a week ago, it feels like such a long time. They lost 4-1 against Shakhtar Donetsk. They probably got rid of Tedesco pretty sharpish.
Yeah.
And Marco Rosa, who had his own extremely short spell at Borussia Dortmund last year. He's now back in the dugout. So yeah, I think Leipzig have got form for that as well, because they got rid of Jesse Marsch, but it wasn't working out for them. So they're very clearly a club that likes to make those decisions good and early, rather than persevere. But yeah, I mean, obviously they've had a bit of issue to trying to integrate Timo Werner back into the side. So it is a team that has had a fair bit of upheaval so far. But no, against Leipzig, they look like a completely different team altogether. I think Dortmund obviously looking a little bit ropey. at the back. And I mean, I thought we'd been looking ropey at the back for years, to be honest. I think Schlotterbeck and Nicholas Sula probably, for the time season, aren't quite gelling as of yet. I think Schlotterbeck's got a lot of potential, but I think they haven't really hit their strides, and I think they've been a bit unlucky as well with obviously what's happened to losing Haaland, Sebastian Haller having the issues that he's had, and they're starting Anthony Modeste up front, formerly of Köln. So I think they're probably a little bit short of where they want to be, certainly up top. And I think it absolutely shows. But if you watch any part of that game, you've just got to watch the absolute banger from Dominic Szoboszlai. We've raved about him before, but the technique he has, just almost with barely any swerve, just literally stuck his foot straight through it, it's like that Alan Partey foot like a traction engine thing. That over it. It was an absolute screamer. So I think and the Bundesliga's been sort of tight this season. I think nobody's really running away with it at the moment. For example, we'll go on to Bayern Munich. Obviously, they haven't, by their standards, they've drawn 3 games in a row now, and they're still in third place, only 2 points behind the leaders. So, whereas, and that's their worst start since the 2010 season. And that was an interesting game because, again, but Bayern Munich are another team that never really start their seasons particularly well. I remember last season they started there getting battered 4-1 by Hoffenheim, I think it was. And this season they've been a little bit sluggish. That was it's interesting because it started off quite well. I think they've got one of the youngest scorers in the Bundesliga now. Which was nice to see. So it was I think 17 years old, lad from the academy, Matthias Tell. Nice little finish. Just took the ball like a half turn, slammed it in. I'll tell you what, we're gonna miss Jamal Musiala. From an English point of view, he's declared for Germany, but he did an absolutely filthy little shimmy to get away. To get away from the guy, to get away from the Stuttgart defender, and just left it in top corner. He is going to be something else. He's 18, 19. The likes of him and Bellingham are going to be ripping it up for years. Definitely. But the second half, though, I think they really, really fell off it. It was just Bayern were very, very sloppy with their passes. There's so many misplaced ones, and I think do you
think that's a surprise given Nagelsmann's kind of the total football approach and that they haven't kind of gelled yet?
Yeah, I think given the pressure at Bayern, I was looking on Twitter and I think there seems to be a few dissenting voices at Nagelsmann, but it's Bayern Munich, isn't it? You don't get.
Did you hear the backstory around Nagelsmann? Which I don't know if viewers have seen this story. I only heard it through Raphael Honigstein, so that's my source. So don't shoot me down if that's incorrect. But by all accounts, he got divorced from his wife. The very next day after his announcement came out, he got together with a girlfriend that apparently was from the Bild, or the German equivalent of The Sun, who is a reporter for Bayern Munich. And then the club were like, right, how many stories have been potentially leaked to this particular newspaper, The Bild, around Bayern Munich? And they were really conscious about going forwards. They didn't know what the decision was going to be in terms of whether they should terminate Nagelsmann's contract there and then. This was very early on in the season. So the fact that you've got that in the background, alongside, obviously, I think there was some discontent with Lewandowski moving on because a lot of the club seems to think that was a good move for the club in terms of he was a one-man, play it to him and he will score the goals. And maybe there was a sense of he was quite arrogant, which you kind of maybe expect with a player of his caliber.
Yeah, but I've never, apart from maybe Gary Lineker, I don't think I've ever come across a non-arrogant world-class striker. It is in their nature, and I think Bayern. I think they knew. Let's be honest, it's been going around for a couple of years that Lewandowski has wanted to try something new. He made it clear all summer that he wanted to move on. And the fact they're still bringing fucking Choupo-Moting, who
Yeah.
might I add has got the must have the best agent in the world to go from Stoke to PSG to Bayern
And
Munich
then Bayern,
and contribute effectively nothing. The fact they're having to bring him on and start a 17-year-old kid in the attacking positions, I feel they could have. I feel obviously with Mane building where to fitness and Leroy Sané, they have got a lot of talent there, but certainly as a focal point up top, you can't just let a 40 goal a season striker go and expect everybody else to pick up the slack. This is just not going to work. I feel like they could have mainly gone for someone like Osimhen or Darwin Núñez before he moved to Liverpool. Like I feel that Bay would have been in the sort of market to do that. So yeah, I think they've looked a little bit sloppy, but then we've said this about Bayern before, and you just know they're gonna go and win. So yeah, they conceded a very sloppy penalty at the end. Again, just really, really fucking clumsy.
Do you think it's going to be tighter though in this Bundesliga title race? I have to say, because Union Berlin are setting like the ground on fire at the moment. They probably won't be there by the end of it, but the fact that they're proving all the doubters wrong in terms of the way the club is set up, they haven't got many big names, not on big money either. Freiburg's another club that's doing quite well at the moment. It'll be very interesting to see that. And also Mönchengladbach as well. They've got Daniel Farke in charge. They're a team that haven't got European championship or competition to play in. So again, I'm not saying they'll be like the title potentials by the end of it, but again, they could mix it up. I think the fact that they've got more time to relax after games, rest, etc., that could go in their favour as well. But I'm expecting it still to be between Dortmund and Bayern Munich by the end of it. Personally.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I think with Bayern they'll walk away with it, because when the fixture list does start getting heavy, especially in October time and after the World Cup as well, when everyone's feeling a bit leggy, they've got the depth to be able to plough through those games. So whereas at the moment you've only played 5 or 6 games. Teams are playing largely once a week, so they can rest teams for like Europe and like Europa League and have their strongest ones for the league lineup. I think they're fine with that at the moment. But obviously, when they get to that stretch of the season where they're playing every 3 or 4 days, the squad depth for those teams is really going to shine through. But it's looking at the table at the moment, it's going to be very, very tight. I think Freiburg have started. Obviously, Union Berlin. I think they're everyone's like neutral favourites. I think at the moment, they're very family orientated. There are real working class roots at the background of what they've achieved in such a short space of time is incredible. So, yeah, I really hope we do well. But between 8th and first place is only 5 points difference. So yeah, I think we'll see a better picture with that, because I think there's quite a big divide at the moment between the bottom half of the table and the top part. So from 12th down to 18th. Most of those teams are only won once. Speaking of really shit teams, we're going to go to our favourite shit team, which is SD Schalke. I remember on our first year of the Hopeless Pod, we were rooting on Schalke, even though they were absolutely shocking. I think it literally went to about March before they won a game during that season, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was very, very close to them just losing, going the whole season without winning a game. But obviously they played Bochum. They did overachieve by staying in the Bundesliga last season. But it's fair to say their manager is under a little bit of pressure at the moment, especially a couple of the German league focused ones are sort of speculating, 6 defeats on the row, poor performances. And I think the manager, by all accounts, is probably in a little bit of trouble for that one. I think it's fair to say. So yeah, I think there'll be a change made there soon enough. But no, Schalke actually looked quite decent, to be fair. They made the most out of the set pieces. There was a really underrated header. I mean, from Sebastian Polter, in the 96th minute. It's worth googling, because honestly, you don't really see many proper towering headers these days. It came from a looping free kick just on the 18-yard line. absolutely parodying. It's like one of the most aesthetically pleasing headers I've seen for a while. So that's worth a go. But yeah, I think first win of the season, they were more than worth that win as well. They put a lot of pressure on. They're out for relegation zone. So yeah, I think the other game that was hilarious as well. Thinking about it was the Augsburg match. I don't know if you've seen it on YouTube, but it all got a little bit carny in the end. So they're playing Werder Bremen away from home. Obviously they've won 1-0, but 90 of like right up the depth, Werder Bremen get a penalty, misses it. The keeper starts giving the keeper Gogrits starts giving it the big un. And in front of the Werder Bremen ultras, they start pouring over. Want to start threatening to get onto the pitch. And suddenly there's an invisible force field by a 3-foot barrier. They're just there giving it all the aggro. But yeah, that was quite an entertaining end to it. Obviously got a yellow for it. For Arthur team got a bloody yellow. Yeah, I think Augsburg, I was watching the highlights of that, I thought, they're like Burnley. You don't know how they're still there.
They aren't a great side. No.
Yeah, they don't play great football, but every single season they just seem to do enough to bail them out the shit. Every year you think, oh, you know what, this might be the year that Augsburg finally go down, and then they just get a couple of sweaty wins together, and then suddenly they're all good again. So. Yeah, I think the thing with Bundesliga at the moment, I think there's a lot of clubs that haven't really hit their peak at the moment.
Leverkusen being one of them as well.
Yeah, they started off well. That free kick from Derembai is worth watching if you haven't seen that already. But yeah, they're struggling to find consistency at the moment. So I think it's a very, very open league.
Definitely.
So I think we should probably give more of a shit about it, apart from when the Queen does.
Makes it, yeah. Right, Andy, I think I'm going to wrap it up there because we are going to go back into Blimp and we'll cover off La Liga, which was one of the leagues that I did cover off, and I believe you watched a few matches as well. So let's go into La Liga. And we find ourselves in Spain now. And where should we start? I think we'll start off by the topic that Rory wanted to cover off, and that was Griezmann's contract. So, Andy, I'm sure you've read a bit on this one.
Yeah.
Griezmann's contract is fascinating to see because right now Barcelona are threatening to sue Atletico because they feel they should be owed 40 million for Griezmann's permanent signing. Atletico are arguing that this is like a 2-year loan, whereby the first year of his loan was you can play as much as you like, and then the second half, this is where it seems to be stipulated on like terms and terminology, where if he plays at least 50% or above, which is my understanding, then that triggers the kind of you have to pay for his services and essentially sign him. And by all accounts, Simeone wants to sign Griezmann. If anything, Atletico did Barcelona a favour by signing him in the first place, because if you remember at the time, they couldn't actually activate some players to actually play for their squad, because that's the season when Messi had to go as well on a free transfer. But actually, this highlights another issue, which is Atletico's kind of cash roll issue at the moment, because if you remember, you all remember this, where Man United were offered the likes of João Felix and Cunha to sign on a permanent basis. Apparently, they also offered you guys Alvaro Morata, which Man United declines, which I bet you're pleased to know about that. But given the circumstances, I'll be surprised if this goes into a lawsuit, given that Barca was so desperate to get rid of Griezmann. I mean, what was your thoughts on the whole situation?
I think Barca, probably just, they were glad to get him off the books. Obviously, they were hoping that Atletico Madrid would just pout the money and buy them. And now, Atletico Madrid have really taken the piss and not even attempting to hide it. But at the same time, though, like if you put those rules in there, you can't blame the other side for exploiting them. I'm sure. I feel sorry for Lewandowski because I'm pretty sure, especially for World Cup around the corner, I think he'll want to be playing a bit more than half an hour a week. So
yeah.
yeah,
This is it. But I'm going to cover off a few of the clubs that took my eye. So I'm going to start off by a team I don't think anyone kind of anticipated, because when we kind of talk about Sevilla, you kind of expect them to be the higher echelons of the league, but they currently find themselves in 16th place. This was courtesy of actually winning against Espanyol, who are 15th at the moment. And this was actually, Andy, a really good matchup. So Sevilla were away to Espanyol. Espanyol, who have the likes of Joselu, if you remember him from
the
Stoke
old
City pastures.
He
And
played
then,
for Newcastle as well,
yes,
didn't
he did. Yeah,
And
exactly.
he didn't really score for either club, particularly.
Not really. No, it wasn't that prolific.
I think Eric Lamela is probably the highlight of that one, wasn't he?
Yeah, certainly for Sevilla. But Espanyol also have Martin Braithwaite, who they took off their rivals Barcelona.
You know what?
And
when I saw the highlights of that game, because I knew Barca had binned him off unceremoniously. I had absolutely no idea he'd rocked up at their rivals. So
he's absolutely epic for Espanyol. 2 games, 2 goals so far. By all accounts, he had a very first good game. In this particular game against Sevilla, he actually was quite good. You wouldn't have believed it was Martin Braithwaite that we all slag off, but he was really good. But what I wanted to do was highlight Sevilla more to the point, because Sevilla, if I just name a few of the players that they signed this kind of summer period. So they got Kasper Dolberg, who they got on loan from Nice, Adnan Januzaj, who they got on a free from Real Sociedad, Isco from Real Madrid, so that was free. Tanguy Nuzon, who we know from FM Legends, he's free from Bayern Munich. And obviously, for your benefit, Andy, Alex Telles is there as well on loan. Hopefully, he'll make it permanent to Sevilla for your sake. But you mix him with the lights that they've already got. So they've got lights of Rakitic, Jesus Navas, Thomas Delaney, Eric Lamela, as you said, Suso as well up front. So they've got a decent squad, decent core of a squad, right? But they're really struggling. There was a lot of rumours that if Lopetegui didn't win this match against Espanyol, maybe it could be curtains for him. I think the fact that they're in a Champions League and they managed to get the win, it gives them a bit of a breathing space at the moment because of how early we are in the season. But yeah, a very intriguing situation there by Sevilla as well. Just to go through a few of the key results otherwise, we saw Barcelona winning 4-0 against Cadiz. Lewandowski off the mark again here. And Lewandowski has already set another record in La Liga. He's the first striker, apparently, to score 6 goals in 5 games, making him the fastest player in the 21st century to complete that. So incredible stats.
He looks a different level, though, doesn't he? I mean, some of the Cadiz defending was suspicious at best. I think it was the one where he set up, he got the assist, and the Cadiz was running such a high line. All of their defenders were virtually in the halfway line, and they wonder why there's nobody defending back. I think that. Speaking of Cadiz versus Barcelona one, though, I think we've got to give a keep out to their keeper Conan because the game was stopped for 50 odd minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the keeper had to deliver like a defibrillator kit, and this poor gentleman, he basically passed away for 10 minutes. So apparently he's all stable now, but I think given the delay there was, I don't think Cadiz were in any mood to sort of really.
Lewandowski tweeted there's more things important in life, and it was just a picture of that keeper just throwing on that defibrillator. So let's hope that man pulls through. By all accounts, it sounds like he's in a safe place at the moment. So thoughts with his family at this moment in time as well. Atletico Madrid winning here against Celta Vigo as well on Saturday, beating them 4-1. Then going in Sunday, we've got the likes of Real Madrid continuing their 100% run. There's only a handful of clubs across Europe that can claim that at the moment, but Real Madrid being one of them. So there's a certain club in Scotland who we won't mention, Andy. There's also a club in Belgium by the name of Sporting Liège who are doing quite well. And I did see, I think it's Ajax that have also got 100% record.
Yeah.
So, far,
I think Madrid are looking. I know it's early days, but I think Madrid look sort of streets ahead of everybody else at the moment, don't they?
They look incredible, don't they? I mean, if you think about the players they moved on and who they've got in, like Tchouaméni is a replacement for Casemiro.
He's fitted in seamlessly, hasn't he?
And you even look at the back and the players they've got, like Rodrigo, who doesn't kind of play because of Junior Vinicius, or obviously, again, he scored on Saturday or Sunday even. Just incredible. They seem to have backups. And where's this happened? Like, I don't know. I thought like a few years ago we were kind of slating that they're old geriatrics, and they're not going to last it.
They're sort of quietly
Modric is like on a different level.
Yeah. Oh, Modric is different class, isn't he?
Another
player I follow is Valverde. Very, very good.
Yeah, so different gravy at the moment with Real Madrid. They seem to be the team that could do it, maybe in both, like Champions League and maybe the league. I mean, I'll tell you what's going to be fascinating is when Barcelona take on Real Madrid. I'm actually looking forward to that. I mean, last few seasons, I haven't been actually that bothered, but the fact that Lewandowski's on form and the fact that you've got this Real Madrid team, it just feels like there's going to be a special game. Knowing that, we've cursed it now, and it's going to be a boring, like,
dour 0-0,
dour 0-0. But let's pray that there's a exciting Classica or whatever they've got right now. But then the only other point that I wanted to bring up on this pod was Girona. So Girona are a team that got promoted into La Liga this season. They find themselves in 10th place. No, they find themselves actually in 8th right now. The reason why I wanted to talk to you, Andy, about this was that they're part of the City group.
They have been for a little while, yeah.
They've got like some interesting players. So Oriol Romeo, who used to be the ex-Southampton Chelsea player, he's down there at the moment. Paulo Casaniga, the goalkeeper, who was at Spurs, on loan from Fulham at the moment. They've also got a few interesting players that, likes of Bournemouth fans might recognise. Rodriguez Riquelme, who's on loan from Atletico Madrid. He's an interesting youngster. Christian Stuani, who's a name that Middlesbrough fans will remember. He's a striker. He's been their most kind of prolific striker at the moment, but he's currently out at the moment, injured. But they've also got loans from the likes of New York City, so Tati Castellanos, and they've got Tan Kota and Yangel Herrera from Man City. So
they've even got a couple of Real Madrid loans.
They've got quite a few going on. They've got a few going on.
Yeah.
They've got an interesting coach as well. He's called Miguel, only 40 years old. He used to play for Real Vallecano, it is. And every club that he's been to, he's got them promoted and then been sacked unceremoniously. And for whatever reason, they clearly see something in him. But interestingly, Girona have only been in La Liga 3 times in the history. This is their 3rd season, believe it or not. But clearly the City groups see this as kind of that bridge between sort of South America to maybe Europe as well, because there's I was reading into it, but there's someone called Jean Pazzi who's kind of the CEO of that group, and he's responsible for the contracts of every player in the 10 clubs across the City group. But apparently he was the one that tipped off Pep Guardiola about Alvarez. So when they saw him play, it seems to be that there's quite an extensive network going about. And Girona, obviously, the other thing we've got to mention is the La Liga rules around financial fair play is going to play a massive part going forward as well. So, I think this is going to be a club that's going to be sustainable, but potentially be that like feeder club for a lot of these teams. Do you think there's going to be a lot of these kind of networks going forward? Because we know like the family, for example, at Watford and what they do, but there's loads of other groups that do it, right? And
it's been going on for a while, because obviously you've got the Red Bull group. I mean, they were doing it before it was cool. You've got the Red Bull stable. They've got Red Bull Bragantino in the top division in Brazil. You've got Salzburg, Leipzig. They've got a couple of other smaller clubs. Obviously got Red Bull's New York over in MLS. So City have effectively just done that, but at a bigger scale. And they've got clubs obviously over in Australia, as well with Melbourne City. They used to be called Melbourne Hearts, and they changed over to Melbourne City. So they've effectively got, clubs at sort of each corner of the world is getting to that point. So they're able to tap into a huge market of talent. And I think they'll have it where, a bit like what Red Bull do, is that you have their managers just go working way around the company almost until they get like a big job. So yeah, I think it does raise the questions to how does that work in terms of if both teams do really well and get into the Champions League and all that kind of stuff. There's a few like conflicts of interest there, but I suppose for the moment it's been managed all right. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's just how football is now. I think it's not, you prefer it if just each team will run independently. But I guess one thing you can't say against is, especially if it's in Spanish football as well, a club like Girona is never going to go bust. They're always going to have that support.
Exactly.
They're going to have that backing, and that just gives them a bit of stability. How, on a side note, speaking about that Girona again, did you see the goal from ex-Barcelona youth player Monty Rodriguez for Valladolid?
I didn't know.
Oh, mate, Google it. It's an absolute screamer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 100% worth a watch. I think also whilst on Spanish football, the Valencia away kit is fucking awful. It is. Oh my god, it is genuinely the worst kit I've seen. It has to be seen to be believed. But because I checked out the highlights of them playing Rayo Vallecano, and oh my god, they could. I mean, the kit's fucking awful. They can't defend for shit. Like they deserve to go down.
There you have it, listeners and viewers. Hopefully you will check out that goal as well as Valencia's horrible kit. But Andy, I'm going to quickly just go through the fixtures that are taking place on Wednesday before we record our pod on Thursday, which I'm sure we'll review. So Champions League kicks off on Wednesday. So the big games that take place. So we've got Rangers versus Napoli, and then we've got Milan versus Dynamo Zagreb, Chelsea versus Salzburg, Shakhtar Donetsk versus Celtic, Real Madrid versus Leipzig. Then we've got Copenhagen versus Sevilla, Man City versus Dortmund, which could be juicy for Haaland, Juventus versus Benfica, and Maccabi Haifa versus PSG. So yeah, any of those games that take your fancy?
Yeah, I think the Rangers game being rearranged, I think that'll be a big one for them. So they needed to perform a hell of a lot better than they did against PSV, because they were absolutely gone awful. So yeah, I think so Ajax, my bad, I got two Dutch clubs confused there, but yeah, I think Rangers have had a bit of a ropey couple of weeks, it's fair to say, after the Old Firm derby and their Champions League embarrassment. So I think they'll be looking to do better. But yeah, I think there is, hopefully the games that do go ahead will be some exciting ones. I think Marseille, Eintracht Frankfurt, that'll be a fan's favourite, I think it was, because both got very passionate fan bases. If you go to Europa League last season, Eintracht Frankfurt took a massive following with 2 games. I think also the Dinamo Zagreb Milan match will be
could be interesting
because obviously, especially with Dinamo Zagreb beating Chelsea, like that was a hell of a result.
Unexpected. But Zagreb are a team that are underestimated at the moment, and they've got some good players as well. So yes, but that kind of brings us to the end now, Andy. So many thanks to you. Quickly to address one of the questions that we got on the pod from Jay Pearson. So hi, Jay. He asked about how Diderik Origi is getting on at Milan. And yeah, he hasn't played too many games, unfortunately, so we can't really judge him. But all I would say is that Lord Origi, as you put it in your message to us, he seems to be a favourite with Milan fans. And for those that are watching, Rory has said he apologises. Unfortunately, he's not been able to try and get on. Something to do with his laptop giving up life, which pretty much sounds about legit, because he was complaining about his laptop before we went online as well. But make sure you follow us on our social media channels. So we are on Twitter at Italian Anglo Pod, but for the other ones, it's Anglo-Italian Pod, so Instagram, etc. You've also got Andy on TikTok duty. So Andy, I'm sure you'll be adding some more videos in due course. But for now, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Monday. Take care, guys.